Imagine it is now the early days of March 2026. You are a diligent employee who has just received your annual salary increase notice. However, when looking at your end-of-month bank statement, a chilling feeling immediately runs down your spine. You are earning more money than at any point in the past. But the remaining amount is significantly less than it was 5 years ago. This evaporation of wealth does not occur like a noisy robbery or a sudden emergency disaster. It is a silent tide, slowly washing away the sand beneath your feet. According to statistical data, the average spending of an American household has increased by 5.1%, completely overwhelming the mere 3.8% growth in income. This deadly gap appears not at all because you have suddenly become wasteful. It appears because the entire pricing structure of the modern economy has been dismantled and reassembled by financial engineers. Their sole objective is to extract the maximum from your wallet while providing an increasingly meager amount of value in return. Right now, we will conduct a cold-blooded forensic autopsy of the most ruthless spending traps of this decade. Once you see through the operating mechanisms behind them, you will forever be unable to look at the consumer world with the same naive eyes as before. The first trap is high-end vacation travel, which is being marketed as an essential right of the middle class. Since the year 2019, the total costs for transportation, accommodation, and dining have been pushed up by 30 to 40%. A one-week getaway for two can now easily swallow $4,000 to $6,000. This inflation is supported by the dynamic pricing algorithms of major hotel chains, which are capable of automatically pushing prices to the ceiling the moment they detect a surge in demand. However, the true cruelty does not lie in the numbers on the bill, but in how Americans finance these trips. Instead of saving first and then enjoying, millions of households are using credit cards to shoulder luxurious vacations, turning a relaxing experience into a prolonged installment debt. When you swipe your card to pay for a fun week at the beach, and then have to bear an interest rate of up to 20% over the next 18 months, you are not just paying for that vacation. You are paying a massive penalty to the financial system, simply because you desired to enjoy something beyond your actual ability to pay. Those beautiful memories on social media ultimately become iron shackles, locking you into a labor cycle with no way out. The second trap is a masterpiece of psychological manipulation called buy now pay later services. These financial technology platforms appear at every online checkout step, inviting you to split a $300 item into 4 payments of just $75 each. In theory, they do not charge any interest if you pay on time. The temptation of immediate ownership without suffering the pain of losing a large sum of money is irresistible to the human brain. But independent studies have stripped bare the true face of this model. People who use these new installment services typically overspend by 10 to 40% compared to if they had to pay up front all at once. By shattering the psychological barrier of price, the system has robbed consumers of their patience and discipline. You feel like you are spending less because each bill is very small. But in reality, you are throwing the vault doors wide open for countless frivolous purchases. Even more terrifying, nearly 40% of users have been late on at least one payment. The moment that happens, the trap snaps shut, and penalty fees along with exorbitant interest rates begin to be calculated. Because these platforms operate in a legal gray area, not immediately reporting to credit bureaus, users can easily get entangled in dozens of hidden debts without realizing the catastrophic level of risk waiting ahead. The third trap directly attacks humanity's most basic survival need, which is fast food. Throughout many decades of the 20th century, the fast food industry signed an unspoken economic contract with the working class. It was a promise of a filling meal, providing enough necessary calories to work, at an unimaginably cheap price. Their only competitive advantages were speed and savings. But today, that contract has been mercilessly torn up. The prices of these industrial meals have skyrocketed by over 55% in just the last 5 years. A combo meal at major chains today typically ranges from $10 to $15. This price level has approached dangerously close to the cost of dining at small casual restaurants. Yet, you still have to eat hurriedly in your cramped car, or on cold plastic chairs. You are paying a price equivalent to restaurant service for ultra-processed foods, mass-produced with the sole purpose of optimizing ingredient costs for the owners. The core value of fast food has completely collapsed. If you maintain the habit of consuming these $12 meals 3 times a week, you are burning through $1,872 every year. A huge sum of money is wasted on things that devastate your health, instead of being put into investment funds that grow over time. The fourth trap is a perfect testament to human irrationality when facing social norms: the wedding industry. The average wedding in the United States today costs about $35,000. And this figure easily exceeds the $50,000 threshold in major metropolitan areas. In economics, there is a concept called Veblen goods, referring to products where demand increases as their price becomes more expensive, because that sky-high price is a tool to demonstrate status. The wedding industry has fully exploited this warped psychological drive. The same bouquet, the same food menu, the same photographer, but as soon as you attach the keyword, wedding, to the contract, the price is automatically multiplied by 50 to 300%. Why do couples obediently accept this legal pickpocketing? Because the media system has brainwashed us into believing this is the single sacred moment in life, where any effort to bargain is seen as an insult to pure love. As a result, millions of marriages begin not with a solid financial foundation, but with a massive pile of debt. $35,000 should have been the foundation stone to buy a house. Yet it evaporates after just one night of frivolous partying, leaving heavy financial pressures on a newly signed legal contract. The fifth trap hides under the guise of helpful assistance: online food delivery applications. After an exhausting day of work, you sprawl on the sofa and open your phone. You select a few favorite dishes, pay, and wait for the food to be delivered to your door. Everything seems very convenient, but the user interface never shows you the cruel truth behind the numbers. The listed prices of dishes on the app are always pushed 15 to 30% higher than the actual prices at the restaurant. This is how restaurant owners are forced to act to survive, in order to compensate for the exorbitant commissions that tech corporations collect from them. When you finish paying, adding service fees, delivery fees, small order surcharges, and tips for the driver, a $12 meal can easily swell to $22. You are bearing a markup of over 80%. These fateful algorithms know exactly when your will is at its weakest. Usually at 6 in the evening on weekdays. You are not paying for a meal. You are paying a ruthless tax for your own exhaustion. This convenience is a black hole swallowing thousands of dollars every year from young households who believe they are mastering technology. But in reality, technology is manipulating them. The sixth trap, and also the trap that closes the first part of this autopsy, lies right on the shelves of every supermarket: the worship of national brands. When you walk down the aisle of a grocery store, you always face two choices: a product with a world-famous brand, and a private label product of the supermarket system itself. Independent testing organizations have continuously proven that, chemically and functionally, both types of products are often identical, even produced on the same factory lines. Yet, branded products are always priced 20 to 100% higher. This discrepancy does not come from the quality of raw materials, it comes from billions of dollars in television advertising and global marketing costs. Through blind loyalty, you are voluntarily taking money out of your own pocket to pay the salaries of marketing directors at giant corporations. If a family dared to cast aside the facade of status and switched to using all supermarket label products, they could easily save $1,500 to $2,500 every year. That is real money, not paper money. The pricing system always knows how to tax your familiarity, and unless you are cold-blooded enough to test alternatives, You will forever be a compliant source of profit for inanimate logos. Let us continue the journey deep into the core of the modern consumer machine, where traps are so sophisticatedly designed that they blend perfectly into daily life. If the first 6 traps stripped you of thousands of dollars through convenience and status, then the next 6 traps will be a devastating blow to stagnant psychology and illusions of innovation. Once you understand how financial architects cast their nets, you will realize that every daily spending decision is a life or death move on the chessboard of capitalism. The 7th trap seems harmless at first glance and is often considered by the crowd as the cliché complaints of aging financial experts. That is the habit of consuming premium coffee every day. On average, an elaborately prepared cup of coffee at major chains today costs about $6. If you maintain this habit 5 days a week, you are silently burning away $1,500 every year. If you continue to visit the shop on weekends, that figure easily swells to $2,190. Meanwhile, brewing a cup of equivalent quality coffee at home costs only 15 cents, equivalent to less than $200 for an entire year. A discrepancy of $2,000 per year may not seem concerning to someone with a stable income. But the mathematics of compound interest is a cold-blooded magic that never knows how to lie. If you take that $2,000 every year and regularly invest it in a market index fund with a modest 7% return, after 30 years, that amount will multiply to $245,000. That is $250,000 evaporated just because of a morning habit. When you walk into a luxury coffee shop, you are not paying for the roasted and ground coffee beans. You are paying for a psychological ritual, a temporary shelter between home and work, and the feeling of having a barista call you by your right name. Billion-dollar corporations have grasped this psychological need and priced it with your entire future fortune. The 8th trap is a grand drama of planned obsolescence, performed through consumer tech devices and the latest generation of smartphones. Recall the late 2000s, when each new generation of phones brought revolutionary features that completely changed how we communicate. But that glorious era has been officially buried. Mobile devices costing from $1,200 to $1,500 today only bring incredibly incremental improvements. A slightly sharper camera cluster, a processor a few milliseconds faster, and an exterior design slightly refined to please the eye. For the needs of an ordinary user, the difference between a phone manufactured in 2024 and one launched in 2026 is almost zero. Yet, consumer upgrade cycles are ruthlessly molded, forcing them to replace their phones every 2 to 3 years. This upgrade rarely stems from the old device breaking down, it comes from social pressure and hidden interferences in the operating system. Manufacturers continuously launch trade-in programs, using polished marketing terms to hide the true total cost you are bearing. In absolute mathematical terms, a phone that has lagged 1 to 2 generations still excellently performs 95% of functions. But its selling price has evaporated by 40 to 60%. You're obediently reaching into your pocket to buy the latest glamour is actually a voluntary act of bearing the most expensive depreciation on behalf of wise second-hand buyers. The 9th trap exploits the brain's natural dopamine levels through subscription box models. There is an undeniable psychological truth that humans always feel extreme excitement when receiving packages delivered to their door. Entrepreneurs have seen the opportunity to turn this naive joy into an automatic money printing machine. They launch countless monthly subscription packages, from cosmetics, books, and snacks to pet care supplies. You only need to pay from $25 to $50 per month, and some mysterious group of experts will pre-select surprise items to send to you. But when the velvet curtain is pulled back, the true value of these boxes is an utter disappointment. The goods inside are mostly sluggish inventory, cheap samples, or items that cannot be consumed through traditional distribution channels. You are paying an exorbitant price to help corporations clear out their warehouses. The survival of this business model is not based on your satisfaction, It is based entirely on the inertia of laziness. The initial feeling of eagerness will quickly fade. Boxes begin to pile up in the corner of the house unopened. But you still continue to pay because you are too lazy to perform the cancellation steps. The system has carefully calculated the lifespan of a lazy customer, and they reap massive profits from the months you forget the existence of your own bank account. The 10th trap marks a historical betrayal of the digital era, which is the brutal fragmentation of streaming platforms. The initial promise of this industry was incredibly beautiful and liberating. They called on you to cut off expensive cable TV packages to enjoy absolute freedom, only paying for the movies or shows you truly want to watch. But what followed was a bloody territorial division of media empires. To be able to watch all your favorite content, you are forced to simultaneously subscribe to a series of different platforms. When adding up all the small fees of $15 or $13, your total monthly cost quickly exceeds the $100 threshold. A full year passes, and you lose over $1,200 for your television. This is even worse than the peak era of traditional cable television. This fragmentation is a perfect illusion-making machine. Behavioral economists call this fixed price bias, where people prefer small monthly drips over facing a giant bill. Actual data shows that as many as 30% of users are still diligently paying fees for platforms they haven't opened once in many months. These companies deliberately make the cancellation process complicated, inserting guilt-inducing notices, purely to extract a few more months of fees from completely exhausted customers. The 11th trap brings us back to basic social interaction needs, but they have been completely distorted in terms of value. Dining at traditional restaurants. Compared to 2019, prices at dining establishments have escalated by over 35%. The cause stems from skyrocketing commercial rent, expensive labor costs, and the disruption of the food supply chain. A typical dinner for two, including only an appetizer, main courses, and basic drinks, now easily blows away $100 to $140 of your dollars. If you personally selected the ingredients and cooked at home, that figure would stop at only $15 to $25. However, the pinnacle of the art of pickpocketing in restaurants does not lie in the food plate, but in the glasses of liquid. Profits from beverages are always inflated irrationally, frequently exceeding the 300% threshold. A bottle of wine with a retail price of only $12 at the supermarket will naturally be listed from $45 to $60 on the menu. A glass of draft beer with a cost of less than 80 cents is served at a price of $7. Many restaurants today only use food as a loss leader bait to convince you to consume expensive drinks so they can compensate for operating costs. When you walk into a restaurant, you are essentially not buying food. You are renting 1 square meter of real estate for 2 hours, paying the salaries of the service staff, and bearing a massive tax levied on the glasses of water you drink. The 12th trap, and also the most horrific money-burning machine of the working class, is buying a brand new car from dealerships. The financial world always whispers about the disastrous depreciation of cars, but its true scale is hidden extremely sophisticatedly. The moment your brand new car rolls out of the shop, it immediately evaporates 20% in value. Within the next 12 months, the depreciation will touch the 25 to 30% threshold. This means a car worth $40,000 will only have $28,000 left after 1 year. $12,000 of your blood, sweat, and tears have vanished into thin air, in exchange for a vehicle that is still exactly the same as the first day. The cruelty of the automotive industry does not stop there. They use financial tools to extend loan terms up to 72 or 84 months. This creates an illusion that you are completely capable of paying. But the consequence is that throughout the first 3 years, the amount you owe the bank is always much larger than the actual value the car can be sold for on the market. You are tied to a negative asset. Even more dangerously, car manufacturers are gradually following the tech world, turning the car into a subscription-based hardware. Core features already assembled in the car are now locked by software, requiring you to pay a monthly fee to use them. Compared to buying a 5-year-old used car, which is 30 to 50% cheaper, buying a new car is essentially an act of providing free capital funding for giant industrial corporations. In summary, the 12 traps we have just dissected are not random mistakes of the free market. They are value extraction tools designed meticulously, coldly, and perfectly. When the rate of spending growth stays at 5.1% while wages only tick up 3.8%, a discrepancy of 1.3% per year silently hollows out every household budget. Bit by bit, the ability to save is eliminated, and loans begin to take its place. Corporations listed on the stock exchange have an ultimate obligation to bring profit to shareholders. The financial exhaustion of consumers is not an accident, it is the core feature of this entire system. The process of exploitation is ingeniously disguised under the cover of convenience, social status, and habits that have become deeply ingrained. Water will never flow uphill, and the system will never automatically stop exploiting you. The choice remains forever in your hands. What you have just heard in this video are entirely historical and educational analyses. Please remember carefully, this is absolutely not financial advice, not an investment guide, and even less a recommendation to take any specific action. The financial picture and life circumstances of each individual are a completely unique story. Before making any decisions regarding your assets, please do your own research and consult with qualified financial experts. The ruthless economic models that I have just dissected with you here will never appear prominently on the front pages of mainstream newspapers. They will also never become glittering trends on social media platforms. The system will never ring a warning bell before it begins the extraction process. These shifts and pricing structures operate silently, insidiously devastating over many years and decades. They are only exposed by a very small minority, those who take the trouble to sit back and coldly examine ledgers and historical data, long after everything has been determined. By the time the crowd out there realizes what they have lost, the time to prepare and resist has long since passed. If you are one of the rare individuals who wants to see through the operating mechanism of this machine before it can hollow out your account balance, before the slow decline becomes an irreversible sentence, follow the channel so we can continue these systemic autopsies in the future.